disclosures can get awkward. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck. I'm glad you're with me for today's video. I've got a bit of a more serious topic today. If you haven't watched any of my videos before, I do have some more lighthearted ones that you can check in my videos. If you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate if you clicked on the button below, and if you click on the description below as well, you can see all of my links to my Facebook page, my professional account on Twitter, and also my Pinterest teaching pins as well. So thank you to those people that have been watching from the beginning. I very much appreciate the lovely messages of support that you've been sending. It's great to know that some of the videos that I've shared with you have helped teachers in the classroom, and I look forward to hopefully you joining me for many more videos as well. Today's topic though is, as I said, a bit more serious. I'm going to be covering some of the awkward areas that come when a student discloses something personal to you in the classroom. And this can happen from preschool right up through to year 12, and I'm sure that the university systems have something in place for when this happens as well, and a student needs someone to talk to. And depending on what the student says, depending on their age, depending on your experience as a teacher, there's so many different ways to respond. So hopefully by the end of this video, you've got a bit of a grasp of some of the scenarios that might be thrown at you. I'm going to try and talk about some of the experiences that I've had without giving away too much information that might reveal who that student has been or the school that it was at. I'll try and stick to my experience in that situation. The possible steps that you can take, things that could happen afterwards, and what you can do to make sure that you keep a good, positive relationship with that student as well. So if this is a topic that might be a bit sensitive to you, you might want to click the save button on this or click watch later and watch it when you know you have time to be able to handle the information that's coming to you. If you've got any experiences with domestic violence or sexual assault or anything like that, I may touch on some of those subjects in this. So if that's something that is a bit sensitive to you, if you find that that might be a bit distressful or causing any kind of anxiety, that's not my intention whatsoever. Please make sure that you contact me if you want to talk to me at all about any of those scenarios, or if you have any questions that you're not willing to put in a public comment thread. I am more than happy to talk to anyone on those. And just make sure that you always consult with our department guidelines before taking any steps, and make sure you talk to someone as well if there's anything in this that concerns you further. Okay, so my experiences. I've had a fair few amount of students disclose personal things to me throughout my teaching career, and they can range from more minor things like saying that they've been hit at home to very severe cases of sexual assault. When these things happen, I cannot stress enough, as soon as the student says something to you, whether they divulge this in the classroom, if it's in private, if it's out of school hours, if it's on the playground, if it's at the shops and you run into them, the first thing you need to do is reassure them and tell them, I'm glad you told me. You need to make sure that they know that telling you was a good choice to make. Make sure that they don't feel regret as soon as it's come out of their mouth. Make sure that they know that the first things that you say to them are words of thanks and comfort. And you don't need to be overly dramatic about it. You don't need to, give them insane amounts of hugs or anything like that, because you don't know what kind of a response that student is going to have. Make sure the first thing you say is, I'm glad you told me. And then the next step is if they reveal any more, and what happens there. And I really do need to stress as well that we're not investigators as teachers. That's not our role. And really we shouldn't be doing that, because especially if you're in a classroom scenario and a student has disclosed something in front of the rest of the class, I'm glad you told me. Let's talk about it in a minute. And get the class onto something else, or see if they're happy to talk about it at a different time. Obviously, this depends on what has been disclosed, and depending on their age as well. So the next step that you would have after finding that out is, like I said, talking to the child, not probing for more information. We don't need to do that. Let them talk. You can say to them, is there anything else you want to tell me? Do you want to tell me any more? And then you need to make sure that that child knows if you need to go and tell someone. Some things we don't need to formally report if it's a small minor thing. This is something, again, if you're a new teacher, you need to talk to your head teacher, your assistant principal, whoever your supervisor may be in what setting that you're in. Even if you're a casual teacher, you need to report it to someone and make sure that that student knows that you need to do that. And it could be something as simple as just saying to the student, it's very important that I make sure the principal, use their name obviously, the principal knows that you told me this so that we can make sure that you are safe and that you are cared for at school. Are you okay with me telling them? Most of the time they'll say yes. I've only ever once had a child say no to me telling the principal, and it was a student who was new to the school, who wasn't familiar with the principal yet. They hadn't had that interaction yet. They were really unsure, and I just needed to remind that student that the principal is there to care for us. They take care of us. They make sure that everything that happens in the school is safe, and that it's my job to make sure the principal is aware that a student might be in danger. And then after having that conversation, they were then okay with me telling the principal. So as you're obliged to do, you need to make sure that you notify your supervisor, whoever that might be, and the principal as well. And then it's up to them to take the next steps. So you don't need to go away and call the police or call emergency services or anything like that, or family care services, whatever system you might be in. That's in the job of the principal to do that. And there's a very specific reason the principal has to do that. And it's to make sure that communication is kept across the board. If they have people doing things in all sorts of different ways, it causes a lot of confusion and means that they cannot care for the child properly. So please make sure that you're following whatever state or country you might be in, you're following that procedure and that protocol properly so that we can care for the child the best. So some of the different scenarios that will be disclosed to you, they might be in front of other kids, like I said, they might be personally, and they're not always in the same lessons. Be prepared. A lot of them come up in health lessons when we're talking about body parts, about appropriate or inappropriate touching, how people take medicine and care for each other and that sort of a thing. And this will be a moment for a child where they go, I didn't know that what was happening to me was wrong. They'll have a moment of clarity where they will suddenly realize that someone has been doing something to them, or something has been going on around them that they've only just now realized isn't right. It's not appropriate. And they'll just blurt it out. So you need to be prepared that that can happen in any lesson, most likely in those health lessons though. But I mean, if you're teaching science, maths, whatever, it could just be a sudden emotional eruption from that child and can happen at any time. And really, as teachers, we can be flexible. We can suddenly pull a lesson out of our hats and get the class going so that we can really nurture that child and make sure that they're aware that we're there for them, they are in a safe place, that they can have control over their choices in the place that they're in, and that we're there to care for them. I really want to make sure that people don't make promises that they can't keep those. So in those scenarios, avoid saying things like, I'll make it all better, or it'll be all right now, because the harsh reality of it is that child will probably go back home to that situation that night, because unless it is something that is extremely severe, they will still go home with that parent that night, or that person, or the scenario, or whatever it is it might be that they're going home to. And we cannot promise them that we will suddenly make everything all better. We can assure them, though, that we are there for them, that they are safe at school, that we are there to make sure they are safe at school and keep them protected at school and cared for at school, and that we will do what we can to help them. And that really we're just that base for them. And it is really a harsh reality to deal with sometimes, to know that a child is going home to a scenario that you would never, ever want a child going home to. And we have to be prepared for that, because it will keep you up at night. It will cause you to cry. It is a hard thing to deal with, but unfortunately, that's the system. It's how it works. And the fact of the matter is those kids that are going home to a bad situation, there are quite often kids out there going home to an even worse situation. And I have been given information from our local police about the kinds of scenarios that they have to deal with, and this was all set in confidentiality in terms of professional development and a good understanding of what we're dealing with when we deal with those things. And believe me, those are the things that you don't want to hear at all, ever again. So I laugh from nervousness because it's the only way to cope. If I don't laugh, I'll cry. I'd rather not cry. Okay. So from there, the police can get involved. You might need to give an interview. You might need to provide a statement of what happened, and then it's their job to then step in and do what they do. And believe me, they're very well trained. They're very compassionate. They're very caring. They know how to weed out the answers of our kids. Sometimes we think, I need to be there because they won't understand exactly what they're saying and I'll need to be there to prompt them. They know what they're doing. I've seen them in action. Trust in that. They have the training and they know what they're doing. Some of them are ex-teachers, so they know exactly how to work with kids. They're very, very good with that. If you are asked to sit in on one of the interviews where a child is being interviewed, you need to make sure that you're there purely as support, purely to hand over a tissue, purely to hold their hand if they need it. You're not there to prompt them. You're not there to speak for them at all. And it's a very, very hard thing to do, to sit there and not try and answer for them or not prompt them, or to sit there and watch them being nervous talking to new people. And only once in the entire time that I've ever had to do that has a child said that they don't want to be recorded and they don't want to talk to the police. And then the police officer sought guidance from me, and that's when I reminded the child that police are here to care for us. They're here to help us. They're not there to take the video and put it on the internet or anything like that. Other people won't see the video. It's just for the police officer to have a record of the answers that you gave, and that they are safe and cared for and all those same things that we talk about before. And then after giving those prompts, I gave no prompts whatsoever about the scenario that they were being interviewed for, just about being with a police officer and recording the answers. That was it. And again, that can be very hard to do. And we put our teacher faces on and make sure that the student doesn't know that we've got all of that going on underneath. And it's sometimes you got to walk out and just make sure they're okay. They get to class. And I highly recommend, if you're ever in that situation, I think I've just given 3 highly recommendations there, sorry. You need to debrief as well yourself. So if you've got a mentor on site or the principal on site or just a team teacher that you need to work with, if you need to get a drink of water, go to the toilet, get a breath, get your bearings. Because I find when I've come out of those meetings, I've got this adrenaline sort of going after, I guess, nerves building up inside. And then you come out and just need to debrief before you go back and do whatever it is that you need to do. Because chances are you'll have to go back on class after that. They do this during school hours most of the time. Well, all the times that I've been involved in it, it's during school time. And they do that for a very good reason. And then they will continue with their investigation and do what they need to do. Going further down the track, it might mean that student going to court. It might mean issues with family or friends or relationships dissolving or changing, or rumors in the community. There's lots of things that can happen after that, and you need to be prepared for that, because again, you need to be that rock, that solid base for that student, and make sure that they know that when they're with you, they are safe and that you are there to keep routine, to keep structure. You don't suddenly change what they're doing in the classroom and let them get away with not doing their work and pick the iPad 24/7, because that's going to be a change in routine for them. And kids know, they will pick up on that. Kids will suddenly feel like maybe you're pitying them or feeling sorry for them. And we want them to know that when it comes to being with you in your classroom, this is how things are, this is how they're going to be, and I'm here to help you, to teach you, to make sure you're safe. Okay, I'm just looking back at my notes again, my trusty journal, just to make sure I haven't missed some other things as well. So I think I may have covered most of it there. I think that the big things that you need to make sure that you're doing in that classroom is just making sure, as we should always be doing, is just ensuring that our students know that they can trust us, that we're not going to judge them, that we're going to make sure that when they do tell us something, we will follow through with it. Absolutely follow through. As hard as it might be for us to do, we need to follow through. If it's an awkward conversation for us to go and tell our principal that a child has been inappropriately touched, or more than that, deal with it, grow a pair and go and have the conversation. Because if we don't do something about it, that may be the last time that child says anything, and then that will just make things so much more worse for them if they don't ever have the chance to come out of that terrible situation. Okay, hopefully I didn't go too disjointed there. It's a bit of a difficult topic to talk about because, as I said, I have been in some fairly serious scenarios with some of my students, and I think I've mentioned before, I've worked with preschool age all the way up through to adult age as well, and these disclosures that I've worked with haven't all just come from the primary sector. So lots of different things to different degrees, and some nights it might make me stay up awake, especially when I've got 3 kids of my own, but luckily I'm very, very confident my children are safe under my own roof with my family and friends, and hopefully I can always keep them in my safe little bubble. But we know, though, that the kids that we teach don't always come from those lovely safe little bubbles, and sometimes we want to wrap them up in wool and take them home, and we can't always do that. But just know that if you maintain those good relationships with your kids, follow those procedures, we can help them as best as we can, and make sure you always tell them, I'm glad you told me. Okay guys, if you've stayed through till the end of the video, I'd very much appreciate it if you click subscribe. I'll put my button down below so you can hover over that and click on the thing. And if you'd like to see a more lighthearted video, I'll chuck a funny one up the top there for you guys. And click to subscribe, share, tag. See you in the next one. Thanks guys. Bye.